Welcome to the Scott Harness Podcast.
Hey, I want to welcome you today. Today is going to be an exciting day. We're going to talk about something that we all need to talk about, parenting. We're going to be discussing how we deal with these major parenting problems. And so in the room, I'm going to go around in just a moment and let everybody kind of introduce themselves. Before I do, though, let me remind you that one of the greatest ways you can support what's happening here is to like and share, click that subscribe button, hit the bell, do whatever it takes to make sure you know when we're fixing to publish a new video. Every single week, Tuesday at 11 a.m., we'll do this podcast live. And then, you share it with your friends. There's some great content in it. You can expect some new content coming out. We're going to pull some clips from some of the past podcasts and things that we've shot that I think is going to be really cool. You can see that here over the next little bit. But today we're going to do a parenting. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to burn our time up. I want to just jump right into it because I don't know about you, but parenting is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. So we're going to discuss how it is that we work through that. But before we do it, let's go around the room. Let's kind of introduce everybody so you kind of know who's here and what's going on. And so we'll start with our production crew. Let them kind of share with you who they are and all that's with that.
All right, so I'm Brady Gill. I'm the student pastor here, and for right now, I am running the screens and some stuff and making sure this all runs. So,
I'm Steven. I'm running sound today.
My name is Fernando. I am the campus pastor of our North Little Rock campus, and man, what an honor it is to get to be here. I've got a little one. She is the joy of our world. Her name is Chandler, and so I'm excited to be here to talk about her today.
How's Chandler?
Man, she's 1 year old, going on 35.
Yep.
It's a mess.
And I am Montana. I'm the kids director at our North Little Rock campus, but I also help out at our Sherwood campus. And I'm here to talk today about my son, who is 14. And so it'll be real fun to talk about him, the life of a teenager.
Go, Stacey. I'll let you tell our story. Okay. Come on.
I'm Stacey Harness, and I'm his wife. And we have together 8 kids. We have 3 biological and 5 adopted. And so.
It's a big family. You got to pull your shoes off to start figuring out how many kids do we have or whatever, So what's funny is people used to, give you that mess about, do you know their birth dates and all that kind of stuff. They don't do that to me anymore. Because they understand.
Didn't know the 3 biological.
It doesn't matter.
Dates.
It doesn't matter. Now we've been overwhelmed by volume. So it doesn't matter. So anyway, one of the reasons why we kind of chose the folks that we have in the room today is because everybody's got at a different kind of life stage. You're going to find in this room, and you're going to find us discussing, we've got blended families, we've got adopted children, we've got toddlers. I mean, I think we'll cover everything.
Absolutely.
So let's start this off with some questions. Here's the one question I want to ask, and anybody chime in. What have you personally found as the most difficult parenting issue that you faced? Anybody can go.
I had a feeling Fernando wanted to go first.
Wow.
he does like to talk.
Let's start with the cute one. Let's start with the 1-year-old.
So we're just going to throw me in there. All right. Honestly, I'd say for me and for Ashton, we found that with a toddler, one of the biggest problems, because they're not running into problems like texting and having boyfriends and girlfriends and doing drugs and things like that. If they are, oh my gosh.
Get them out of the nursery quickly.
Listen, I don't know what's going on. But I would say for us, our biggest problem that we're finding is that our world is starting to revolve more around her.
Yeah.
And we're starting to forget about each other.
Oh, that's good.
And that's the part that I would urge anybody, if you see that, identify it quickly and start working on each other, because just because you have kids doesn't mean that your marriage stops. And man, we're having to relearn that. And I think it's a healthy thing, but it's also a hard thing right now.
Man, that is good. That is so, and I think we went through that.
Oh, absolutely.
I think when there's times when your kids are at a certain age that they're just it's so demanding. It takes your focus, and plus your energy's out. You're exhausted.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I think there's big gaps in time, and people talk about, well, I have a hard time remembering my kids at certain stages. Of course you do, because of sleep deprivation. Yeah. You nearly died. Hardest thing you've ever been through. You kidding me?
Yeah.
So.
But when you get to our age and you get on the other side, most of your kids, our youngest one is 12 today.
That's right. Today's his birthday.
And so when you get to our, age and you start getting the last one getting up there, you start to go, oh, that's right. I'm going to be back with this husband again or this wife again. It's going to be just us at some point. And so you have to invest in that. Well, your marriage has to be strong for,
Well, and there's so many people that get to a certain age where when their kids leave the nest, they don't really know exactly how to be with each other because they focused on their kids for so long.
That's right.
And I think we see a lot of that today with the whole my kid's my best friend kind of deal. Like, I love my kid, but my wife's my best friend.
Yeah.
And she's going to come before you.
Yeah.
Like, I love you.
And that leads right into my hardest thing about parenting, just for me personally, and is that I think I want to be liked by my kids.
Yeah.
And I want this thing to be like really amazing. And all the time they walk around talking about their mom, how much they love their mom and how glad they are to have their mom and how sacrificial she is. And I just see
My kid couldn't spell sacrificial.
I see everything that she does. And I'm so grateful for my mom. And I think that's a problem because you told me a long time ago, Scott, you said you can't expect anything from your kids when you're parenting them. You can't expect anything back. And it's not healthy. If you do, you won't be a healthy parent. And I think for me, because I am the mom and I'm the more compassionate, I guess, side of the relationship. I want them to do what I think is best. And then I also want them to like it and like me while they do it. And sometimes that doesn't coincide in parenting. And that is hard for me because I want that perfect environment all the time. And sometimes doing the right decision with our kids is hard. And sometimes they're not going to like it. And sometimes they're not going to like me because of it. So it's okay. I'm like, love me. Wait, no, whatever. Hate me now, love me later.
I don't think, I think the opposite could be true, though. I don't think you just set out to make your kids dislike you.
Oh, no.
But, I think that especially as they get older, boundaries are really important.
Yeah.
And you got to set those boundaries. And that's not going to be popular because, unfortunately, your kids have a reference point and it's other kids and other parents and how the other kids are parented,
That's right.
So they're like, hey, wait a second, little Johnny gets to do so-and-so and so-and-so. And then we just pulled the old speech out. If all the kids were jumping off a cliff,
would you jump off?
are you jumping?
A few of ours said,
Yeah, maybe.
How high is it?
Is there water? Yeah.
Location is everything.
It is. It is. So Fernando, you've got a toddler and you have a baby on the way. How does that change? How's that dynamic change?
Actually, we talked about this this last week. I kind of had to wrap my brain around it. He's going to be here in almost 2.5 months, a little under that. And so just the thought of having, and I say diapers, Chandler's still in diapers, but I mean, like, she's at the point now where we're able to talk and I can kind of know what she wants and kind of figure her out and have fun. We're going to go right back to the whole, I've got to hold you, carry you, take you everywhere. And I'm just thinking, like, man, this is part 2, but it's going to be exciting. Like, that's been my number one thing is I wanted to be a dad and I wanted to love my family fully because I missed out on that experience. My dad wasn't there. I didn't get to have that, but I had mentors and other father figures. And so, like, it's terrifying. I'm not even going to lie. As a new dad and as a future dad of 2, it's terrifying. Like, because at any moment you feel in your heart, I don't want to fail these kids, but you still got to give it your all.
Yeah.
And so I just always refer back to the thing that Pastor Mark told me one time. You pray for your kids now and pray for them forever because you got to ask the question, who's praying for them?
Yeah.
If it's not you.
That's right.
That's right. I pray for them every day that they figure it out and ultimately come to know Jesus and we have fun along the way and they don't hate me too much for giving them accountability.
That's it. I'm telling you.
Listen, Chandler's hard to give accountability to. She's so stinking
so
cute. Oh my gosh. Listen, I feel like we have children, but I feel we have grandchildren too.
Yes.
So there's a different mindset. I look at that stuff and I go, I kind of want to just go along with the flow. We're trying to get into heaven now. We're not really trying to, so, but I see little Chandler coming along and I'm like, you little booger, come here.
Man, I'm telling you right now, a lot of y'all would let her get away with murder.
I promise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Montana would say I would too, but I mean, I'm not going to argue it too much.
So let's transition a little bit. Montana, what would you say is the hardest? What do you think the hardest thing that you have? Because you got a teenager, so
I do.
the variables change. Cuteness gives way to something else.
Yes, it does. It fades. Cuteness fades. It becomes something a little bit different. You know, my son is like, he's handsome now and he's getting a little maturity, but yeah, the cuteness phase of, oh, you hang the moon, it's gone.
Yeah.
Real fast.
So fast.
So I have a 14-year-old and we adopted him a year ago this month, and he's only lived with us for about a year and a half. So I'm 26, so having a 14-year-old is definitely different, and I definitely got it wrong most of the time and probably still do. But one of the biggest challenges that my husband and I have had with our son is the phone.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a phone when I think I was 12. I was probably in 7th grade, and I got a phone. And digging into the research, most parents do get their child a phone, even nowadays, by the age of 12. Like 75% of parents have given their child their own phone by the age of 12. So my son moved in when he was 13. And so we got him a phone, like, oh yeah, because everybody had a phone. And so he really wanted one. So we gave him a phone and we did the whole speech of like, hey, you know, you don't give out information. This is what you don't look up on the internet. And I researched that 95% of parents have given that speech to their kids, but only 38% regularly go back to it. So that means they gave the speech once when they were 12 years old, never did it again. So that was, we didn't go that far. We're part of the 38% that continue to talk about it, but we didn't do any restrictions, parental controls. We said, here's a phone. You're smart enough to do what's right, right? Okay, here you go. So that lasted about 2 months.
Yep.
And that was our ignorance, that it lasted 2 months. So he eventually got his phone taken away, of course, from like grades or disrespectful. So I was like, hey, I'm going to look into it. Well, of course, there's all kinds of passcodes. So we made him give us those because he doesn't pay for the phone. And I started looking just at like what he was doing when he was by himself or he pretended the world couldn't see. And I was shocked.
Yeah.
And it's not anything against my kid. I was shocked because I was like, I am an awful parent. I've been doing this for 2 months and I have failed. Because even all these lessons that we've been teaching, all the conversations, I'm like, they didn't matter. Or they did matter, but if I wasn't putting into practice and looking at what he was looking at, then it was failing. So I did some research. I had a feeling that other parents probably were like me, that they didn't know exactly what their kids were looking at. So I read that 76% of parents get their kid a phone in case of emergencies. So that's why we got our kid a phone. Our other child, who's not with us anymore, she was in the hospital on and off when we first got both of them. And so we're like, oh, he needs to get a phone because in case somebody else is picking him up from school, he needs to know. He's 13. He's going to know when grandma pulls up, that's grandma's car. He's probably supposed to go with grandma. So looking at hindsight now, I'm like, okay, there was never really any big emergencies that my 13-year-old needed to know. But then I read that 95% of parents talk about, again, what their kids should be on the internet, but only 39% of parents will talk about it again throughout their lives. So then I read, okay, so privacy, because I've got a lot of flack for how much I look at my kid's stuff. Like, I'm concerned with what he's watching on TV, what video games he's playing. I look at his text messages, internet history, etc. And I get a lot of flack for it, especially as a young parent. Like, you raised your kid. They know what to do is right. You have to let them make mistakes. I mean, I don't agree with that because some mistakes have lifelong implications.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
So I read a survey that said 61% of parents admitted. Now, I like that it said admitted because some parents won't even admit to a survey that they look at their kid's phone. It's the whole, I want to be best friends with them.
Right.
So 61% of parents admitted that they do check their kids' websites. 60% of parents check their kids' social medias, and 48% check their text messages. So roughly about average, like 54% of parents do check their kids' stuff. But I thought it was funny that only 39% of parents actually use parental controls to filter and monitor things. So yes, over half of parents are looking at their kids' phones, but they don't do anything to prevent what they're looking at. They just kind of ground them, give them a warning, go back to the whole conversation of why we don't do that, but then send them back out into the world. So we use parental controls for everything: screen time, internet searches. They're not allowed to take. He's not allowed to take his phone in his room because who knows what they do throughout the night. And it does seem a little overprotective. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to look at statistics from a kid's point of view. So this is a survey where they ask kids questions. 90% of children ages 8 to 16 have seen online pornography.
Wow.
90%.
Wow.
So my faith that my child will just happen to be in that 10% is not enough for me.
That's good.
So that's why we block certain websites. And I will say, just saying that, oh, we're going to block porn is not all that there is. There's so many ways to get around it. I mean, I have my son's kids he goes to school with, just text him a website. You don't even know what it is, but you click on it and it's some dating like app or something. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
So then 69% of teens regularly receive online communications from strangers and they don't tell a parent. I've had this happen plenty of times with social media and text. I'll be like, hey, because they don't save contacts anymore. So a lot of teens don't save contacts. I don't know the reason. My kid can't give me the reason why he doesn't save contacts. Oh, I just know who they are.
Listen, I can't do that.
Yeah, no. So I'll be like, oh, who's this person? I don't know. You know, I game with them sometimes. And I'm like, you don't know who this person is that you're texting 24/7? He's like, no, I game with them. I was like, this person could be 80 years old, son. I was like, he could be a predator. He's like, I don't. He's like, no, I game with them. So it's totally fine. So, and that's not my son coming to me, hey, mom, this random person texts me. No. These are things that I found and then confronted him.
Yeah.
So the phone has always been a really big issue, and we're learning a lot with the phone. And, you know, we're having the conversations of, you know, what you look at is not secret, and it isn't helpful for you.
Yeah.
That the way you want to go in life, you know, it depends on what you look at now. So, you know, we always do the conversation with my son, like, yes, it's just music or it's just a video game, but it hurts your soul and it hurts your relationships with people and it hurts the way you view people like women and dating and things like that. And he doesn't have the maturity because he's 14.
Yeah, that's right.
His brain's not fully developed.
Right.
He doesn't have the maturity to know that, oh, this could cause something bad later. So I have to be the person and my husband to step in and say, yes, we're going to guard you for as long as we can. And my son always asks me, and he's like, so when did the parental controls come off? And I was like, when you're on your own and you pay for your own phone.
Amen.
And he's like, even when I'm 18, I was like, if you live in this house and I pay for the phone, the parental controls are still going to be on.
Preach.
So I would say that's our biggest issue. And I'm sure Stacey and Scott, with your teenagers, you have phone issues as well.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people would probably say that you're being overprotective.
Yes.
But honestly, I don't think there's enough young parents that are doing the things that you're doing to
I agree.
really hold our kids accountable.
100%.
Listen, this is the next generation. We've had conversations. This next generation has gone through so much. They're going to be hard to deal with in the future.
Well, and I think what's happening is that because this access to so much content is available to them, it's shaping a culture, it's shaping the way what they believe about each other. It's shaping, you know, the way these kids perceive each other. It's shaping the way boys see girls and girls see boys. And, you know, I think one of the issues that we have to confront is that you wouldn't give unlimited access to your kids from, you know, by a pervert. You know, you wouldn't give unlimited access to your kids by someone who was criminally insane. You wouldn't give unlimited access to someone to your kids who is a criminal or who has this weird perspective on life. But that's exactly what we do when we give them unlimited access to the internet. The internet is filled with, no doubt, it's wheat and tares. You know, the parable in the Bible where there's this good crop and fruit, and that's happening. You know, I feel like this is one of them. It's a good thing, but it's also filled with bad things. And, you know, the Bible speaks very often about the secrets and the secret places. And one of the things that the Bible tells us is that, you know, anything done in secret will come to the light. Well, why is it done in secret? Well, it's done in secret because that's the easier place for our flesh just to go after it. And giving our kids the access to these incredibly adult things doesn't help them. And not only it's not like you're saying, hey, you're being overprotective because you won't let him ride his bicycle without knee pads. You know, you can fall and hurt your knee and not suffer the rest of your life. But we've studies that already show that our brain has the capacity to cling to and hang on to an unlimited amount of images for an unlimited amount of time. And so these things are things that imprint your kid, and it changes the trajectory of their life. And so our being, you know, healthy with that. Plus, it's not just about pornography. And I think what you said, Montana, is so true. It's also about, there's philosophies and ideologies. And now, I mean, my gosh, how many weird, crazy, radical opinions are being presented as if they're, they're true, and our kids are exposed to it. So,
and I think it was really good what you said about, being secret, and we have really worked with our kids on, because when you have a phone like that, when you have no boundaries, when you have whatever, it's going to almost create a secret world for you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go in and you're going to have things that you have that you're going to look at, or they're going to pay attention to, that they know we don't want, and they're going to do that in secret. And then it creates this whole secret kind of double life and then there's guilt, and there's all kinds of things, and shame that comes with that. And if we can help our kids to realize that how you are, you should be the same all the time, and there should be no secrets, and there should be no secret life, because I think that sets them up to have, be an adult and have secrets and live one way, one time, and live another way around other people. Yeah. And, with our faith, we know that we should be the same.
That's right.
And it's hard to do that. You got to fight to do that.
You do.
And I think we have to teach our kids that you got to put up that fight.
Well, one of the things you don't realize is that we only have a limited amount of emotional energy to interact with people in a real sense. And so what's happening to us, not just our kids, but us as well, social media is, what we're doing is we're using all of our resource of emotional energy on something, and then we don't have it, excuse me, we don't have it for real people.
Yeah.
So what happens is that we've seen it with our kids. We have the Tupperware bowl of shame where they have to turn their phone in, and we keep it, and that's where it stays, So, and we do that all the time. It's not, we have phones right now. So, and the moment we take that phone away, all of a sudden there's this, they'll talk now. They're not, just when you walk through and you go, "Hey, how are you doing?" "I'm fine, I'm fine. What is that? What'd you say?" And they'll be upset about something. You'll notice, what are you upset about? "Well, one of my battle, islands got destroyed." Hey,
exactly what that is.
100% what that is.
You realize that's not real, right?
Okay. Not real, but upset about it. Or they just text a friend and that they didn't get the response back that they thought they needed. And so what happens is that in this world that part of it's not even real, and then part of it is propped up fakeness, and then part of it is, you don't even understand what's happening on the other side because you don't have body language and real stuff. Their emotional energy is being used up. And so, we began to have conversations when our kids don't have their phone. They start talking again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like they learn, they have a voice and
present again.
Yeah, I'll go through the kitchen like in the morning and go, "Hey, good morning, how are y'all doing?" Everybody's engaged the phone thing for a little bit. It's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" It's like
crickets.
Hey. I'm like, what the heck is happening? Suck their brain out.
Suck their brain out. That's
right. Which is funny. So when I was doing my research, I found that 70% of parents think cell phones have a positive effect on their child's development.
Oh my gosh.
What?
And all I could think when I read that was, they've never taken their kid's phone away for longer than a day.
That's right.
If they believe that has a positive effect
Well,
on
I think
them.
at that point, you have to ask, how often are they on their phones?
Yeah.
Well, the phone became the babysitter. Mm-hmm. You know what I can do? I can give you this phone and I can send you away, and I'm gonna believe that you're gonna. In fact, to be honest with you, a lot of parents that we deal with and discuss, they're not as concerned about these things. Mm-mm. They're just not.
They don't want to know.
They're just, and it frustrates the heck out of me when I'm talking to somebody and I go, "Why have I got a greater, aspiration for your kid's moral understanding and path for life than you do as the freaking parent?" Mm-hmm. You should have enough gumption and desire for your kids to live a life that they need to live and be just a good human being, and to be willing to put some things in place. And that phone, man, that thing's you see these little kids walking around, they're 6 years old. Who's a 4-year-old call?
Well, and I'll tell you too, from a toddler perspective, we did it for a little bit there, and then we got convicted of it because at any point, if she didn't have that screen time or that phone in her hand to play whatever song, music, video, she'd freak out. And we were like, "No, we've got to change this." Hey, we're not going to be those parents, because we were seeing that it was easy to just say, "Hey, here you go."
Yeah.
Yep.
Just hey.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're yelling, "We got it. It's good."
Yeah.
and it's so easy.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw it too. She started smoking cigarettes and she was running around the hood. I was like, something's done.
Had her hat turned backwards.
But it's the instant gratification world that we live in, and kids get accustomed to that.
That's
it's
true.
Like every time I don't feel good, or every time then I scream, and toddlers do it, but then teenagers do it too.
Yeah.
They scream and they fuss in different ways, and sometimes we'll just go as parents, just make them be quiet and give it to them so they'll be quiet. But I mean, and we all have our faults in that, we've all done it. But I think that if you do that consistently, it creates an issue, with instant gratification, which I want what I want and you better give it to me, or I'm gonna throw a fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing we ought to talk about that I think is important, and you guys will experience it, is no two kids are alike.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things for me, is that I tend to like to figure out what is the ingredients. If I'm going to bake a cake, I know what goes in the bowl, and then once I learn that, then I just put the same stuff together. Kids aren't like that at all. And so what happens is, and it doesn't matter if they're biological, adopted, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter. The kids are different. None of our kids have been the same, none. And they couldn't be parented the same.
Right.
And so one of the things that the Bible says is raise up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, and not depart from it. That first part of that verse is critically important, because what it says is that every child has a way that they should go. And so, helping bring out the natural, ingredients God put in your child's life is really important, but it's very challenging, because that strong-willed child, what you don't realize is that God may have given that kid strong will and that sort of, ask questions and kind of buck the system a little bit, because God wants that child to grow up to be a young woman or a young man to make a big difference in the world. And when you make a big difference, you face a lot of adversity. You face a lot of collisions with things that are, and for them to be able to do that, they need that tenacity. So how do you still have to implant obedience into a kid that's strong-willed, but at the same time you don't want to break their will, because you don't want them to get to a place where they think that standing for something is wrong. You just have to help them understand, you got to you got to put a steering wheel on it, and you don't just, need to be, strong-willed for no reason. And, but I think everyone is different. Every one of our kids is even punishment and correction is different.
Yeah.
Whether you are a grounder, harsh words, or a spanker or whatever, and I know you're not allowed to say spank or anything anymore, but that's the reason why our world's screwed up. We have some very, very soft parents and soft kids. Listen.
But I think about even with, like, people ask me all the time, where have your kids gone to school? Or is homeschooling right? Or is public school right? Or is private school right? And we've done the public school route and the private school route. And I think it really, like what you're saying, it depends on the child, and it depends on how that child, their personality is, how God created them. And if you have the option to do different things, it's best to be able to look at your child and say, what does this child need? Do they need a small environment, a big environment? Do they need lots of attention from a teacher? And so it's the same thing with punishment. We have to, or reward, or however you get your kids to do what they need to do, is, something that works for one of our kids may not work for the other one. And, for some of our kids, we've just been able to raise our eyebrow and be like, hey, you don't need to do that. And I don't know if any of them did that. Then they stopped when we did that.
I would like that.
Good effort.
But, other ones we've had to.
You could have an eyebrow cramp and they're still not moving forward.
Other ones we could explain, kind of why they needed to do this, and that would help, Other ones didn't care. It was like, hey, you got to.
Go to your room. I'm getting the belt.
Spare the rod, spoil the child, the kind of thing. But I mean, it really has depended on which kid it was. And we as parents have to discern what that kid needs. Yeah. And, sometimes we've taken away things and we go on, they don't even care.
But if you parent from this perspective, what is God doing as a parent, I think you're a navigator as much as anything with your kids. So you need to ask this question: what is God doing in this child's life, and what does he want to do with this child? Because I believe that God gives you, if you'll listen and you'll speak to him and you'll pray about it, I think God will give you perspective about your kids that he gives to nobody else. That's the reason why, Montana, you were talking about parenting and how sometimes people will be critical of your parenting or you're overprotecting. Here's the reality. You can't parent your kid based on what everybody else thinks. You parent your kid based on what God is telling you.
That's good.
Because God's going to tell you things about your kid he's not going to tell anybody else. So you are that. He gave them to you. And so you what does God want to do with this child's life? It's important not to parent the child based on the common idea of all people, but it's also important not to parent your child based on your own fears. That there is a way that you can overprotect them. There's some things they will have to go through. There are some hardships they do need to take. There are some mistakes they do need to make. While they're in the laboratory of your home, there's some stuff they need to go through, and you need to let them. If every time there's something happening at school, which, Montana's a teacher and she can testify to this, we almost automatically, when we get the phone call from the school, we almost automatically go, the teacher's right, you're wrong. And that's where our default setting. Yep. I know the opposite could be true for a lot of parents where it's like, my kid's always right. Well, you're not doing your kids any favor when the voices of authority are working. If every classroom they go into, they're having a problem, it's probably not the classrooms. Yeah. It's probably not teachers. So you're not doing your kids any favor by not confronting that issue. Yeah. And you got to let them, you've got to go in there and go, hey, you got to cut that junk out. Because in life is less forgiving when they're outside of your home, and their decisions can be much more critical. So it's important to parent the way God wants them to go.
Well, I know that some studies that I've read before said that by the time a child is 8 years old, they have kind of their worldview set by what they've gone through before, by the age of 8. Yeah. And then by the time that they're 12, they have in their mind set what they believe about religion, God, any kind of higher power, authority, they kind of have that set. So if you think about that and you think about what a critical stage that we as parents are at, when we are thinking, oh, well, that's just a toddler. She can't really know, but she's learning. Chandler is learning right now at 18 months, at 1 year old. She's learning, what safety looks like. She's learning, who cares for me. She's learning that my needs will be met, or whatever. And then at the next stage, she's learning something else. Yeah. And till they get to be adults, and if they miss out on those stages, at some point, it's hard. It's hard to recoup that, when you miss out. It's not impossible, but it's hard, it's harder. And so, I just think that it's important. What we do is important. And I looked up the definition of parenting. You want to hear it?
Sure.
The process of promoting and supporting the physical, emotional, social, and intellectual development of a child from infancy to adulthood.
There's a lot of big words there. I'm going to sum it up with love them, give them food, and take care of them.
But it doesn't even say, it doesn't say spiritual in there. Okay, no. So I would add spiritual.
So you got that from the satanic website?
Wikipedia. It's from Wikipedia. Yeah.
Like I said.
But you know what? That's overwhelming. If you look at that just definition, you might look at that and go, oh my gosh, how will I ever meet all of their physical, emotional, spiritual, developmental, social and intellectual needs? And so it's overwhelming to a lot of us, and that's why we have to have each other. That's right. To be able to go, hey, we can do this together.
And and that, I'm glad that you said that, because I think about my mom. My mom was a single parent to 2 kids, and I mean, everybody else was in our presence. Yeah. Everybody else was our guardian. Everybody else was aunt, uncles, and everything. Yeah. And so I think about that, and like you saying, like, it's so important to have someone there to help you as well. Yeah. And so, like, for any of the single parents that are out there, man, I'm I'm proof in the pudding that it takes a village, and really takes those deep rooted, essential, methods of what God's word teaches. That's right. To really say that God's process is always working, and it never comes back void.
That's right.
Even in the times when you think that it's going to come back void, when you're pretty sure it's going to come back void. Most definitely. Because there are times with the kids that I think, there is no way this is going to work out,
Your kids can screw it all. I've messed it up before. But at the end of the day, that God's going to reign supreme through it all.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
So let's go into some real scenarios. These are great terms and ideas. I want to hear some stories where you screwed up parenting.
Oh gosh.
You mean lead off?
Yeah.
Sure.
So Kendall was little. My oldest was little. And so I'm going to teach him how Jesus sacrificed for us. Yes, you hear the laughter. And so what I decided was he needed a spanking. He deserved it, y'all. Deserved it. All right. And I said, but you know what, bud? I'm going to teach you about Christ's sacrifice for you. I'd read this article. I think it was Focus on the Family published it, which, not every article is accurate. Just couldn't tell you that. So I went into his room and brought Stacey there with me, and I got a belt, and I said, bud, you've done what's wrong. Now, I don't know. How old is he?
Probably 6.
6 years old. So, we're going to get this grace, sacrifice, substitute kind of thing down. I said, but I'm not going to spank you. Instead, I'm going to take your spanking for you.
It sounds dumb right now, but it sounded good then. I mean,
It didn't sound good to you because you were still laughing, but I thought I was going to get a home run, y'all. And Kendall's like, okay. And so anyway, Stacey's enjoying it too. She's like, hey, yeah, my turn. Bam. So,
and then Kendall looks back at me and he's laughing. He's
yeah, about the third swat, and I'm on fire. Kendall's like, he's like, he thinks this is entertainment. I was like, okay, it didn't work. Go out.
he was like, that didn't work.
That didn't work.
I walked out of the bedroom and I said, hey, don't ever do that again. That doesn't work.
Yeah. So
you can't teach him the grace of sacrifice that way.
But somebody told me they had this deal, and this child was like, oh, mommy, it was the mother. I don't want that to happen. I'm so sorry. And
that's what Jesus did for you.
Yeah.
Honey.
See, my kids were on the verge of going to hell just right off the bat because they did not get it. They are not getting it at all.
Hope was asking for that time.
Exactly. Hope was like, can Dad take my whipping today?
And can I get $50?
Yeah, exactly. And the keys to the car.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, somebody else. That's my one story. So somebody else, failure in parenting, funny, stupid, silly.
So he was 13 at the time. So my son was doing an art project, and it's one of those things that you think you have a 13-year-old, so you think all the common sense is there. It's not. And again, but that was my fault believing that it was there. I've learned. So he was doing an art project where he had to cut foam with like an X-Acto knife, and so my husband and I had just got these. So he's probably with us for about 3 months now. We had just got these new tables about a year earlier. Still hadn't paid him off. And so he's done with his project and it's outside. And I'm like, oh, let me look at it. So then I look at it and I go back to our table. There's wheels scratched into my table and a box because he was making a car. And I was like, oh my gosh. No. So I was kind of mad, but again, he'd only been with us for a few months, and I was like, I don't want him to cry. I don't want him to feel this bad. And so, but he needs to know we can't, use an X-Acto knife on my tables anymore. And so I bring him in there, and I'm like, look what you did. Like thinking like, oh, he's going to break down. He's like, oh, yeah, I did my project on that table. And walked away, and I was like, what? And I was like, no, that wasn't the point. I know you did your project. There's a car scratched into my table. And then I'm like, do you not feel bad? Well, I told you I did my project. Like, I mean,
what else
I
you
guess
want?
I should have put something underneath it. And then he still tries to walk away, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I don't even remember what I did, but I was like going to show him what it's like when you tear up something and have no empathy for it. So I think I went and got one of his new shoes and like scratched something in it. And then he was like, you bought them, and walked away.
No.
And then I don't know. It's kind of fuzzy from there what exactly happened. But
You blacked out. You saw red.
I realized that trying to teach empathy to a child with something that you bought doesn't really work. So I'm like, I'm going to wait until you save your quarters and buy something one day, and then I'm going to mess it up. So like, I still have that. He still has no money.
In that moment, Montana believed in stern discipline.
You're still holding onto that same thing, though?
Can you spank a 13-year-old? I'm not sure. We didn't, but it would have felt nice probably in the moment.
Oh man,
You should have just had Zach come in there, and then you just spanked Zach instead of Hassan.
Oh, yeah.
don't
That
think
didn't
that
work.
would've gone over
Remember?
well.
We talked about that. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
He would
Don't
be
try that.
damaged.
Don't try that. Doesn't work.
oh man, where do you go wrong with a toddler? Lots of places. Back to what Stacey said, they're picking up everything at this stage. I mean, the other day she was watching Ashton do something, and she's got her little thinking face on. just standing there with their mouth open, catching flies. But I thought it was a great idea when she was really small to do this thing where like I would yell in her face and yell with her, and every time she cried, we would just Well, now she does it all the time.
She's a squealer.
She is a squealer, but she has developed the finger point method, and she'll tell you no while she yells at you and thinks it's funny. And it's a habit that we can't break. And I did that. So when she's getting in trouble with Ashton and I see her throw that stubby little finger up and go, no, I just leave the room because I can't hold it together. Seeing a 1-year-old tell a grown woman, no.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're the one to blame. You don't want to be involved in that.
Oh my gosh. When they turn 15 and do it, that's when it's not near as cute. I promise you.
But then, you know, when they're 15, they only need 9 fingers. They really need all 10 anymore.
Messes their math up though. That's the only thing.
They still got toes.
That's hilarious.
You know, for me, mine's I think mine is because of wanting to be compassionate with the kids. Sometimes I would let them pull me to the side and tell me something in the beginning of, you know, their growing up, especially their teenage years. I'd let them come in and tell me something and not tell Scott. Because they wanted to run it by me as a filter to see what I would say before they let Scott get to it. But what that created was the secrets thing again. And so Scott would hear Hope. It's always Hope. He would hear Hope in the kitchen and he'd hear us whispering and he'd be like on the couch or something. He'd be like, okay, what are y'all trying to get, past here? Yeah. What are you trying to,
The answer is no.
Yeah. And so I think that was one of my greatest failures in the beginning. At least I noticed it. And now I'm like, as soon as they come to me about something, I'm like, okay, let's talk to your dad about it right now. Let's go ahead and include him on the conversation right now. Because what that did is that created some hard, feelings between him and the kids, and then they weren't getting the full information, and so it's a secret world again that you don't want. And so I think that was one of my, that was where I parent failed, all of them are probably in their first of their teenage years.
Yeah.
And so I don't do that anymore, but I would say don't do secrets,
Let's do some rapid fire stuff. Let's go through some stuff pretty quick. I think there's a few things that we ought to cover because when I think of the biggest parenting problems that you face, I know some people are going, man, I've got this I face or whatever. But in a general sense, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make as parents is we parent on extremes. So in other words, we'll overcorrect something that needs to be corrected. We over celebrate things that need to be celebrated. And so what happens is we're making a ton of emotional decisions about things that we need to keep less emotional. And so what you do is you build a kid that's extremely high, extremely low, because that's what we parented. And so I think one of the problems with us is that we need to try to be consistent. And there's those times when you want to lose your mind. Don't lose it. Don't lose your mind. Go ahead and parent that child and keep some level of consistency. So in other words, take the peak and the valley, you've made a mistake. Now we're going to, cut your legs off or whatever, or you've done something good. Here's the biggest trophy ever, or, whatever. Those extremes, I think, keep us from being viable and really directing them. And so if we can keep the emotional state out of it, sometimes you may need to go as a mom and dad, just be by yourself and just talk about it. Or if you're just a single mom, maybe you've got a confidant, somebody you can talk to, and just get alone and talk about it before you confront the kid on it. I found that sometimes it's just better to have a conversation without them before you have the conversation with them. That way you're not, because sometimes when I talk it out, if I'm talking to them directly, things will come out my mouth and things will come to my mind, especially if I'm frustrated, that when it comes out my mouth, I'm like, that probably wasn't.
They always say count to 10.
Yeah, no, I need
you got to count
at least 30.
Yeah, I need
10,
more.
000.
Yeah, I need to
count to 10,000.
Count to 24 hours.
You're gonna need more fingers for that.
Yeah, and toes.
Yeah.
So, but I think if you take the extra, we may not realize it, but kind of like even with Fernando was talking about how that you're creating these you're cultivating habits and putting in patterns in your kids' lives. You're making an investment that's going to bring a return. If you're less emotional, and if something's wrong and you have set a standard for it and it's a rule, just enforce the rules sometimes is the best way to do it. If we say, hey, look, you do this, you lose your phone, then just lose the phone. Don't make it dramatic. Don't make it drag out.
Consistent.
If their punishment is they don't get to go to the ball game or whatever, then let that be the punishment, and everything else is still open. This is the punishment. Quarantine it. I think sometimes we parent our kids because it's not only do we want them to learn the lesson, and I think we parent them emotionally for this, is that we not only want them to learn the lesson, we want them to like it. We want them to like what we said to them. We want them to appreciate it. I appreciate it. That's so good. You're trying to make my character better. They're just not going to say that. That's just never going to happen. And most of the time, they're going to think you're wrong. So you just parent, enforce the rule, and I do appreciate some of these shows. You'll watch these shows where they sit down and they'll just talk to these kids for hours and hours and hours. I think sometimes that exacerbates it too. I think there's times when you sit down with a kid when they've made a mistake and you talk about it so much, the mistake becomes so big, it almost scars them because they think, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible human being. I'm never going to be able to they just screwed up. They did something stupid. They sent a text.
Into it more.
Yeah. And they leave damage. Just correct it, throttle back some of that emotion, and just correct it. When you celebrate their successes, if they clean their room up, I'm just going to be frank with you. They should not get a trophy.
Yeah.
It's your room. You should clean it up. That's how it is. Did you see my room? Oh, your room looks clean. Good job. It should not be, hey, let's stop. We're all going to go eat steak now because little Josie cleaned her room. No, you're programming them to believe that they need to be rewarded and they're entitled to a reward for doing what they should have done.
Right.
You should have cleaned your room. But at the same time, you shouldn't go in there and say, well, it's about time. I mean, what I mean. I've been.
Shouldn't.
Let me write that down.
Yeah, let me go ahead and take notes on that one.
But the other thing is too, is that I think it's the principle of long haul versus short haul. I think one of the things we want when we have behavioral problems or anything else with our kids, we're thinking short term. God puts you in your kids' lives for your kids' life. And so be willing to make investments and not necessarily see the gain right away. It's kind of like investing money. You're probably not going to be, there's a handful of people that throw their money into something and they become an overnight, millionaire. Most people invest their money and it's a long period of time before it draws a return. Same thing's true with kids. Keep investing, even with your adult kids. Some of us, have adult kids that maybe they've gone wayward or whatever. Keep investing, even Montana, you guys and us are the same. We entered our kids' lives. They were a ways down the pike. In fact, our youngest was 8 when he came into our life. And so, there's things that were in place that we didn't put in place, but we're going to work through them. Keep investing.
That's right.
Just let that seed planting and pray God's harvest over that. And you just keep investing, but maybe pull some of the emotion out of it, throttle back a little bit of that, stay consistent, and you'll be amazed at what happens in the long term. You can't expect a 15-year-old boy that's got enough hormones to jumpstart a diesel truck probably to respond to you the way that he needs to. He's going to be weird, and single parents, you're at a disadvantage. It's hard. Yep. It's hard being a single parent. But here's what I'll say. Keep investing.
That's right.
Keep investing, keep praying. One of the things that God does that I love about is that he compensates for what's missing. So when we think we're walking with a limp, you have to understand God takes people who walks with a limp and he can make them run in the Olympics. Right. You know what I mean? So don't feel like because you are at a deficit, because, maybe this is harder, that it can never turn out well. Fernando's a prime example of a single mom, and you look at his life and you see where he is today, and not to make his head so big he won't be able to get out of the room. But I'll tell you this about Fernando. I enjoy watching him as a dad and a husband and a pastor. And this is a dude that when I first met him, he's not knee high to a grasshopper, can do backflips and got more energy than anybody you've ever seen. And you know what? I would dare say along the way, some of your teachers probably like, oh, that dude ain't listening.
Shoot, every one of them. If any of you were watching, I'm sorry. Listen, I know what I was like. And I lived those experiences. My mom was, she had that confidant. She would come to different people. She came to you guys. And life-changing experiences where I didn't need to be in on those as the kid. I just needed to be able to understand that the discipline that was there is going to change my life for the better. Sure. Or at least keep me alive. Yeah. And I think that the Bible's clear. Don't provoke your children as fathers. Just give them discipline and lead them and teach them. We have such a huge opportunity to do that.
That's good.
With Chandler and Carter on the way, they got a lot of years of soaking it all in.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I just got to buckle in and make sure that I'm giving them the right things to take hold of, and just continue to keep the one thing.
That's good. So rapid fire, overprotecting. What do y'all think about that? You know, we got a culture of protection. We're protecting our kids. Bubble wrap them.
God, stop it. Oh my gosh. I'm going to, Ashton, sorry. She's the one. She's the overprotective parent. Yeah. And she's loosened up over the last little bit. But I'm telling you right now, you can't let your kids live that way. You got to let them fall. You got to let them learn mistakes and learn things. I'm a firm believer. You lose a tooth having a good time, what'd you learn? Put your hands down if you fall. But
I learned it's fun.
Fernando, you are lying through your teeth. You are the most overprotective parent.
When it comes to certain things, but if it's just me and Chan, I let her run around. Certain things like, okay,
It just got real.
it may have. It definitely depends. I'm overprotective when she gets sick. That's different.
Yes.
I will most definitely let her
Fernando
climb.
will suck the snot out of Chandler's throat and nose if she is sick.
That is not even accurate.
Okay.
I'll use a booger sucker.
You will lay by her bed for 24 hours if
You
she
dang
is sick.
right.
That's true.
You dang right.
And your wife, the nurse, will be sleeping amazingly in the next room.
She's also carrying another child.
This was before Carter was there.
Which she reminds me is my fault, but I tell her it takes two.
So you don't remember that part.
Exactly. But I am most definitely, when it comes to her wellness and things like that, I am overprotective. But I'm one for her learning experiences and having a good time.
Yeah.
At that point, let's go at it 100%. But
Yeah.
you can guarantee I'm going to be right by her bedside if she's sick. Sleeping bag and all.
So Montana, in your family, who's the protector?
Me. I'm definitely a lot protective of my son. And I think it is from the fact that I didn't get him until he was 13. I wasn't able to say, yeah, we don't, even though, again, I believe common sense is there. Is it always used? No. You know, the whole, well, you teach your kid when they're 5, you don't run in traffic. I believe my son knows that, but if, you know, he's chasing his friends, is he going to remember that? I don't know. So I'm very protective, like when he's riding his bike or he's riding his skateboard outside, I'm like looking out the window and I feel ridiculous because he's 14 and he can ride a skateboard down the street and back, but I don't know. I think it's just because we got him so late and I don't know still learning what values were put in place a long time ago. So I'm definitely the overprotective one.
I think we've experienced that too, but I feel like I'm the protector.
Whatever.
I can see it.
Kids, we would not have half of them if you were in charge most of the time. Anyway, no, I've definitely been the overprotector. I've been protective and I've been the overprotective person in the family. And the things that most of the kids have gotten to do is because you forced me to, and you said, come on, Stacey, you got to let them experience, something, and you got to let them fail. And I think this generation of parenting, I think said we don't want the next generation to fail about anything.
Yeah.
We want to protect, we want to keep, we don't want them to go through the things we went through as teenagers or kids. And so we're going to do everything we can to protect them from that. Now, that's great in some respects. And then on the other hand, that creates other problems, which is you get kids that are huge anxiety, full of fear that they can't do the things that they need to be able to do. You get kids that are scared to engage in things. So I think that there has to be a balance. I mean, obviously, can't swing too far the other way, or they'd be in the emergency room every week. But I think that you definitely have to be encouraged. If you're the protector, you have to be encouraged that it's okay. You got to let your kids get out there. They've got to experience something. I remember when one of the kids, I can't remember which one, was at their school and they kept forgetting their lunch. And I kept taking the lunch up there every time they would forget and taking lunch up there every time they forget. And Scott finally said, listen, let them go without a lunch. They're not going to die.
Dude.
Hey, that's excellent.
And so the next
They
time,
won't forget next
the
time.
next time that they called, I said,
It leaves a mark.
I'm sorry, honey. Your daddy won't let me
My
bring
daddy.
you lunch. No, sorry.
No, that's a whole different topic right there.
Your daddy won't let me bring you lunch. No, I didn't say that. I actually owned it and said, I'm sorry, we're not bringing you lunch today because you have to remember to bring your own lunch. And you know what? They didn't die. They're still here. And
They didn't even lose
Probably
weight.
remembered next time.
And next time they remembered. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, they still call.
I did that same thing, but with an inhaler.
Oh.
And then
Well, that's how to teach them.
That might be a little bit different.
Wait a minute, Montana.
I'll teach you a
you
lesson.
know what? He doesn't
Suffer.
forget it anymore.
Suffocate.
So we've got marking up of shoes, breaking off fingers, and you know what? You can't breathe.
Hey, and she's the protector.
Hey, you make mistakes. You've been a parent just as long as I have. Except mine was almost fully cooked. Okay. Mine can talk back. Okay.
Hey, mine will try to talk back. You may not understand it, but
You got that
can
little
see-
finger.
No, believe
That
me.
little finger.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the overprotection part, I do think that's an issue. I think one of the things that we don't understand is that not letting our kids make mistakes, while they're in our home, where the consequences aren't so great is a big deal. They need a database of understanding, and so I think sometimes we cut that off. The other thing is there's a certain amount of toughness they need to build up. That's why you have the safe space stuff and all these kids that, a couple of kids say two things to them and they're just completely crushed, we can be tougher than that. We can, and our kids need to be tougher. They're going to be in a tough world. This is a very chew somebody up kind of world. So I did read a study that said that one of the reasons why we find ourselves more protective than generations past is that we're older as parents. We're having kids later. And so what's happening is that a parent that has a kid that's, at that point, the formative years, when they're in their 30s, is different than a parent who has a kid that's in its formative years when that parent's in their 20s. A 20-year-old their oversight is woefully missing, and maybe for the benefit of the kid. They're like, they don't know. A 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, my gosh, they're going to be protected and scheduled out. Okay, you've got your tooth cleaning on Thursday. We're going to get your new shoes, corrective shoes with the new insoles so your little heels don't hurt. We're going to get that on Friday.
Now, there is nothing wrong with some
your
of these
prescription
things.
pants.
Yeah. I mean, we got the cleanest tooth, soft little people walking around I've ever seen. It's like, come on. Our kids, our biological kids, they didn't even know the dentist. What was the dentist? Unless they had something rotten out, And
Well, the older you get, the more
protective and scheduling.
My son is still surprised when he asks me in the morning what's for dinner and I don't know. And then he asks me at 5 p.m. what's for dinner and I still don't know. He still acts surprised. And I'm like, we don't schedule dinners. I'm sorry. Whatever is easy to cook is probably what it's going to be.
Well, get your Hot Pocket and go to the microwave. What are you trying to mess with over here?
Is there any ramen left in there?
Yeah. You out of ramen noodles already? Well, get on in there, boy. So, how about we got just a little bit of time. How about overproviding? We have more resources than we used to have.
Yeah.
So we give them stuff. Think about it, overproviding. Because we're their entertainment and we provide their entertainment. They have to be entertained all the time. Think about a car ride where kids had to actually sit and look out the window. Can you imagine?
My kid just talks.
Does he really?
Yeah.
See,
He just talks.
y'all are quiet and he's loud.
Yes. Very loud.
Yes.
Something seems hard to believe.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's absolutely true. I think when you think about it, when we were younger, and I don't want to go into the when we were old, young thing, but when we were younger, we would go outside.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the day, and then we had to figure out things to do all day, and then we couldn't come in until dinner, don't come back
Yeah,
until
you weren't allowed to come in.
No.
My mom, when she was off
Street
work,
lamps come on,
she would
come
tell
on.
us to go
that's exactly
outside and play.
Yeah.
And we'd hear the door lock behind us.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you.
Until the street lights come on, you can't come back in.
That's exactly right.
But you
I'll
know
see you
what?
That's exactly right.
But you know what that
We didn't even have
creates?
street lights.
When are we supposed to come back?
But you know
She
what?
said, exactly.
But that created kids that had to create, and they had to
Yeah.
find things to do and brainstorm. And
Yeah.
I mean, some of it was probably not what you should be doing, but I'm just saying now we provide some of it. Now we provide everything for them.
Yeah.
And I do think there's this absolute, guilt that comes that I'm wondering why, if my kids come to me and they say, well, I'm bored, which is, all the time, I feel like I should have to.
But at the same time, we don't give them. Your boundaries are so tight. I'm bored.
Yeah.
Well, you're only allowed to stay in this box. You know, I remember as a kid, my dad at one point, my dad was really, really, really tight with money, you know, and so, I mean, he was like, you know, I'm not giving you anything or anything. Well, the other kids in the neighborhood, there was a little vending machine down the road, a little place, and you could go buy Cokes there. Well, all my buddies would get a Coke. Well, I didn't get change. My dad wouldn't give you change. So my brother and I put together this scheme. We're like, it's like December. We're going to go get a Coke. And we had no money. And I think Coy came up with it because my brother was the smarter one. I was the dumb one. I just did it, you know. And so we decided to go door to door collecting money for the March of Dimes. And so, so we got a tumbler cup, and we went door to door. And dude, we were making bank.
I bet you were.
Yeah, and it wasn't until one guy goes, "Hey, you know, this is supposed to be in March." You know, and I mean, is it? I don't know. Anyway, that's what he said. And he stumped us and we were like, he said, I'm going to call your parents. We didn't think he knew our parents. So we just kept going, but he did call our parents. He knew them. And we came back home and they were upset. We had pockets full of change though, y'all. Dollar bills. We made some money.
And your mama made you take all that back, didn't she?
Oh, she told us to. It didn't happen.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? We just went and hit it, you know, and so we just go by. We had a little hole we dug with a little coffee can. We just pull out our money and go get our Cokes. And we did it for years. But, you know, hey, we entertained ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know that I would use that as an example.
You know. I feel like no foul.
That's terrible.
Oh, man, the people they had the right heart. God's going to bless them for it.
Thanks. It's you I'm worried about.
Yeah, we were about to miss our rapture experience, but I mean, still, but we did stuff like that all the time. But the adventure of it, you know, letting your kids have an adventure that's not built into something plastic or cyber, you know, might be worth it. Even using your own imagination and, you know, but overproviding that, you know, let's talk about stuff for about 10 seconds. How much stuff we give our kids.
Gosh, you know? I'll be the first to speak.
How many
about
Nike
stuff.
shoes Chandler
I was
got?
just about to say the clothes and stuff that Chandler's got. I remember I only had 2 good pairs of shoes as a kid growing up, and that was it. And I got a pair of Air Force Ones out of the trash of my neighbor's house that they threw away. And I was like, dude, take a toothbrush to those things. They're good.
Clean them up.
Chandler, she don't know that.
Yeah.
She's got a pair of shoes for every day of the week.
Yeah.
And as she grows, she gets more.
And the grandparents have more resources.
Yes.
They're the culprit to ruining our children. It's the grandparents.
They keep shoveling it out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, stop.
They're trying to get into heaven. I'm telling you, your mind does shift.
But I will say, my husband and I are young parents, so we always tell our son, your friends have 40-year-old money. 40-year-old parent money. You have 26-year-old parent money. It's not the same. So when our parents buy him stuff, like, he knows where to go to ask for the good stuff. Like, it's not for us. But then, like, my son's obsessed with shoes. So when he's in trouble, we take all the shoes away and leave him with one pair. And he'll still, like, he gets a little bratty sometimes. Like, he's spoiled, which is funny because he's not spoiled, but he acts like he is. And so when we took away all his shoes except for one pair that he despises, they're still Jordans. His worst pair of shoes that he hates are Jordans. And I was like, what world do you live in? Like, I'm going to go buy Walmart shoes, and you see what a bad pair of shoes looks like.
Hey, listen now, Walmart stepped their game up. I still buy Walmart shoes here and there.
I saw some Reeboks in there yesterday. I was like, hey.
Those New Balances are looking nice in there. The official sponsor of all dads.
I like how Montana says she's a young parent. You're in Arkansas. 15's an old parent. You know what I mean?
I would have had to have my son when I was like 11.
Oh my gosh, that ruined me for the day.
Then you're right on track. Oh man, you know what? This is too much fun. I do think we covered some good stuff. Maybe we'll come back and visit this again another day down the road or something.
Yeah, we'll come when Chandler's 15. We'll see how things are going.
Listen, at that point, she'll have her own little silo outside.
Hey, we'll bring her in here. How did he do?
That's right. No.
That'd be 2 different perspectives. Got a daddy's girl and a mama's boy for sure.
Well, she's going to have 8 siblings by then.
Probably so.
15.
That is absolutely
Probably
great. So we actually have a video we're going to do this week for YouTube that's going to be about how we got to 8. You know, the story behind that and our when it's right to adopt.
When it's right to adopt, because we had really questions about that. You know, along the way is if we were supposed to be adopting and what that looked like. And I think there's wisdom and discernment and all that, and you have to, and sifting through all that is kind of difficult. And So we're going to talk about that.
It's going to be a pretty raw video about where, it was kind of thrust upon us, but it was what we had decided to do, but it kind of came at a quick deal. And I know Montana, her and Zach have an interesting story as well along with that. And Brady and Faith are actually, y'all's home, their home just got opened up. So foster care and adoption is going to be a part of what they're going to be doing really soon. So that's going to be a video we'll drop this week, and we'll talk about that a little bit. It'll be some good information there. Again, as always, like, subscribe, click the like button. If you have comments or questions, maybe what you're facing, the biggest issue you're facing right now as a parent, we didn't cover it, and you're like, man, I got a question. Drop us a comment. We'll dig right into that, and we'll get you a response, and we'll tell you what we think and what we believe about it, and maybe give you some help. Maybe you're just a parent or someone just struggling, and you need somebody to pray for you. You need somebody to just be in your court. We're rooting for you. I want you to know that. We'll pray for you. I'm telling you that with absolute clarity and honesty. We will pray for you, and we'd love to be that for you. So leave us a comment. Let us know. Again, share the video, like it, and I think it'll make a big difference, though. But until next time, God bless you guys. I pray that God uses this message this week to help you be at least a somewhat better parent. Maybe you can learn from our mistakes. So anyway, God bless you, and see you next week.